Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Hiro Nishiguchi. I'm the president of Japan Bosai Platform. I'd like to talk about the digital DRR from citizens' perspective. It is very important to have a citizen perspective when we design and implement digital disaster risk reduction activities. Let me also introduce ourselves. Japan Bosai Platform, called JBP, is the Association of Japanese Private Companies. We established this organization in 2014 after several years collaboration activities among several sectors. We are basically the focal point of Japanese private sector technologies. And we are also public-private sector academic partnership. We have about 200 members from diverse industries, sectors. By the way, Bosai in Japanese means that holistic approach to saving lives and economy from disaster. Since we do have about 100 private companies in our members, we do have a very condensed and detailed online database of Japanese private sector technologies. This is available for you at no cost for you, and we can access this homepage and to have access to Bosai Solution database. So please take a look at this database at your convenience. Today, we don't talk about many technologies which are available because you do have access to this database at your convenience. But today, we'd like to talk more important things because technologies alone cannot solve the problem. We need to have a very fundamental principles to leverage what we have already. The most important perspective within digital DRR is how to realize no one is left behind. This is a fundamental concept for SDGs and global sustainability issues. To achieve this goal, we needed to consider three very important elements. To consider digital DRR, the fundamental condition is to perceive how diverse and different we are with each other. Our lives are so different from each other. So we have to understand the diversity of citizens we are working together. And number two is we need to be able to predict life events and activities at each disaster phase. As you can look at the bottom of this presentation, Japanese government has defined the disaster phase or warning level and timeline according to the situation developing, according to the natural hazard. As you can see, from level 1, there is a developing situations gradually. And after level 5, we do have a very critical 72 hours period. And after that, life rebuilding period. And the events and activities at each stage among diverse people are so different. So that is a very important perspective for us to keep on our mind. And also, we actually conducted various hypothesis testing with our local governments in Japan. And we have learned some lessons from these conducting. According to our hypothesis testing, we have two kinds of learnings. Number one is about students. Actually, many people tend to think that I'm going to be okay. I won't be affected by natural hazard or disaster. That's a very common reaction from students, unfortunately. Number two is, in fact, particularly among senior people, I don't want to burden others for my survival. This is a kind of beautiful sentiment, but since they don't feel they need to ask for help, we may lose their very important lives. Another feedback from our governments are they are trying very hard to gather the citizens' personal disaster risk reduction related information that they cannot. And number two is, in fact, in reality, before digitalization of many activities, actually many disaster risk reduction activities were conducted very manually. And number three is, in fact, as you can easily imagine, in case of disaster, always manpower is in short. It's very unfortunate, but this is a reality we need to have to face in the field. Based on these feedbacks, and also we had numerous discussions within our team, and we came up with 3 guiding principles for digital DRR. Number 1 is diversity-based approach. Okay. Number 2 is best mix approach. And number 3 is double-decker approach. And by having 3 guiding principles, and we will be able to achieve 5 elements through digital DRR. Number 1, we need a knowledge. Number 2 is we need a funding. Number 3 is that we need data, of course. And also we have to establish a leading example so that others can follow. And in doing all of them, the most important component is there is no taboo for us to proceed with digital DRR. So let me explain these 3 guiding principles one by one. Number 1, a diversity-based approach. We have to really pay serious attention to a variety of environment, lifestyle, situation of students. I don't know where joining this conference, somewhere on this planet, I know, but your regions, cities, locations must be very different. Natural hazards don't care about our difference. They do attack us without any consideration for diversities. However, we have to think about how different we are in terms of our environment situation. And second point is, since our people are so different and diversified, we need to have a system to gather so-called my DRR information without violating any privacy issues. It is very natural for us to be hesitant to provide personal information to local authorities or national government. It is very natural, I think. However, we need a system, a process, so that citizens can provide their own information to the necessary authorities so that they can leverage, they can understand your diverse background of ours. And once we have my DRR information, and then local government and supporters can have access with our permission, of course. Second approach is best mix approach. In fact, since people are so different, diverse, general or common information has little value, unfortunately. But in fact, we tend to send out so many common general information to all the kind of people without knowing anything about diversity they are in. And because of that, receiving individually optimized information at the right timing is the most important and top priority to respond to the situation in the field, one person by person or town by town, okay? To do so, we cannot do it manually. That's why we need a very serious automation as much as possible. And to do so, again, since it is difficult to gather personal information one by one, citizens may need to be able to offer my DRR information, and also the authorities can be able to utilize my DRR information. The final principles is very important one, double-decker approach. When we talk about digital DRR, we tend to think only about digitalization aspect of disaster risk reduction. However, our finding is that digital DRR has to have a 2 double-decker approach, particularly when we need to work with less privileged person, a little bit less fortunate people in the field. That's why we need to have a combination of appropriate information and a tangible assistant as a package. And we need to be able to help the vulnerable assisted by supporters. And the aid status at the diversity situation needs to be shared among local governments and other supporters. So with all said, let me again emphasize how important to aim for no one is left behind in digital DRR. And we need 3 guiding principles as we discussed today. And by having such a principles, we can design and implement digital DRR common platform. And to have an effective common platform, we need to have a voluntarily submitted my DRR information as a basis so that we can work with 3 guiding principles. And by doing so, we can work with the local governments and the students together. Okay? So digitalization has many aspects, but to proceed with digital DRR effectively, we need to have these 3 guiding principles. This is our message to the rest of the world. Thank you very much for listening to me. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening again. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.